Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the last of the Lead Creatively discussion series for this academic year. Normally, at this moment, you should expect to see my colleague Mahi Doumoura, who is the curator of the Center of Excellence, but Mahi happens to be in London with our executive MBA students. And thank you. We are very privileged because our speaker this afternoon, Professor Costas Andriopoulos, arrived in Athens from London just a few hours ago. And prior to this engagement today, he was engaged with us, with our executive MBA students in London. So we are extremely privileged that he is joining us. Our students are even more privileged, obviously, because they get the benefit of his knowledge and expertise. At this stage, I would like to invite Ms. Dora Economou, and the slide will change, the Director of Human Capital Affairs at SEV. As you know, the Center of Excellence in Creative Leadership is part of our partnership with SEV, the Federation of Enterprises, a very productive collaboration of which we're also very proud. Dora.
Kalispera, and good evening from my side as well. It is my pleasure to invite you once again to this discussion series, the epilogue of this season, which was the first for me as well. As every year since 2018, when SEV Center of Excellence in Creative Leadership was established, the thematic fun of the Center's events has been both pioneering and directly linked to the major business challenges that modern business leaders are called to face. This year's symposium focused on the relationship between humans and artificial intelligence, which was a very interesting topic. And the conclusion was the big challenge that for modern business leaders is to create an environment where humans work effectively with machines to create benefit and value for humans and society. Today, we have a unique opportunity, as Nikos mentioned, to welcome Mr. Costas Andriopoulos, a leading scientist and academic, who will explain how human curiosity can become the catalyst of growth and innovation. Indeed, curiosity, often described as the spark of human inquiry, is not a fleeting impulse, but a driving force shaping our world. It motivates us to question, wonder, and try to understand the unknown beyond us. Especially in this business environment that we are called to operate, where challenges are everyday and complex, curiosity can spark an innovative business idea, solve an important problem, and ultimately lead to great business successes. I won't be long, so we would like to welcome you. We are running a little bit out of time. I'm very proud to be here. And I'm very interested to hear to this discussion, which is different. Curiosity did not kill the cat. After all, it is the spark behind every business decision that we take, and we need to be curious. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dora. The floor, Costa, is yours. Costas Exarloglu, Professor of International Business at Alba, and of course the Dean of Alba Graduate Business School.
Good evening on my end as well. Welcome to the last workshop of the SEV Center of Excellence in Creative Leadership. A few years ago, not many, I participated in a Dean's Conference, Deans of European Business Schools in Munich. This is the conference where deans go there and they complain about their misery with their faculty, the administrators, the students, the alumni, their presidents, and they realize that they are not alone. The rest of the deans complain about the same thing. That's comforting. So anyways, the keynote speaker of that particular conference was the Chief Learning Officer of Google. And then one of the deans, the audience, he asked the speaker, what kind of talent Google is hiring and what kind of competencies business schools need to develop to this talent so that Google hires them in their work. The chief learning officer said that described the era of disruption, that we live in an era where things are changing very fast in an unexpected way. We are in front of general purpose phenomena that influence everybody at the same time. So we don't read about those phenomena, but we live in these phenomena, like AI, like COVID, like all these things. And then he said that in this type of environment, in this type of disruptive world, at Google, we are hiring people who have three competencies. They are curious enough, humble enough, and adaptable enough. And then when we ask them what is the meaning of it, he said, well, in this kind of environment that changes a lot, where things are very new, then people need to be curious to search for the new knowledge, the new truth. And when they realize that, they need to be humble enough to negate what they used to know and adapt the new knowledge. And when they do that, they need to be adaptable enough to implement the new thing in their life and so on. It bothered me a bit, especially the part of curious. What is the meaning of curious? What is the meaning of curiosity? And still bothers me. And then I read the description of the today's workshop. When you read the description, Costas Andriopoulos is going to talk about curiosity, and there is a word in front of curiosity in the description. Purposeful curiosity. I said, my goodness, I'm not going to miss that, because it's going to solve my puzzle. So Costa and Nico, we look forward to this particular discussion, personally because I hope that it's going to solve my puzzle, right? And then this is just one of things. I'm sure that there are many more things that will come out from the discussion. So welcome to Alba, and welcome all, and I hope that we will have a very interesting and insightful discussion today. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a ritual in those events. My job at this moment is to introduce the speaker and the topic. I will not introduce the topic because I think its relevance is self-evident, and of course I could not do a better job at introducing the topic than the speaker himself. I introduce the topic when occasionally we have topics which do not seem to relate intuitively to mainstream business and management, right? But I will say a couple of words about Costas, even though I hope you have read his bio. Costas is a professor of innovation entrepreneurship and the Associate Dean for MBA programs at Bayes Business School in London. His research is on, obviously, innovation, entrepreneurship, especially in the context of fast-changing technology industries. His academic contribution, in particular, is in the field of organizational paradoxes and how leaders sustain and productively such paradoxes. And this might be a topic in our discussion later on. He's been an author, he's in the top 3% of academics globally as measured by citations in the academic literature in his field. He's the author of a book on managing creativity, change, and innovation in its 5th edition, and recently published a book titled Purposeful Curiosity. And this is the reason why we invited Costas to join us tonight. Thank you for being with us, Costa. The floor is yours.
It's a great pleasure being here. Thank you very much for having me. And I know that there are a lot of people who have joined us online, so I hope that you enjoy the session. How do I change this? Great. It's an honor to be here. I have a soft spot for Alba and Seb and for all the activities that they are both working on. The topic is very close to my heart, which is curiosity. I have been curious since I can remember myself. And interestingly, when I talk to a lot of people about, how they channel their curiosity, how they find a purpose, and how, again, they channel their curiosity, the first thing that I see when I talk to them, it's a smile on their face. And the smile on their face comes from childhood, not from what currently they do, but what they used to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. But I was curious about what ChatGPT knows about me. So the first thing that I ask is, who is Costas Andriopoulos and what can ChatGPT tell us? And there are a lot of interesting things. The things that I have underlined are the most interesting things for me. So it is prolific. I love this. So I'm prolific. I didn't know about this. ChatGPT thinks that I'm prolific. ChatGPT thinks that I'm a leading authority. Great. I hope that this is converted to more citations, more money, more success. So ChatGPT knows something that I don't. So thank God that I paid the $20 per month so that I can get that kind of description about who I am. So it's a very interesting thing. But a lot of my students worry, society worries, employers worry about ChatGPT. And I said, ChatGPT has this very, very, very shallow description or explanation about who I am. But it doesn't know me, right? So a lot of people worry about this kind of thing. So for people who know me, they know that I have I wear a lot of interesting and different hats. As Nikos and Costas were saying, I'm a professor, associate dean. In our business school, we also have a venture capital fund, so I'm part of their investment committee. So I have my own business, I'm trying new things, I'm very creative, I'm trying things and I'm failing, I'm trying things and I'm succeeding. So it doesn't matter. Trying and creating, I think it's part of who I am. ChatGPT cannot know this, right? So I'm not worried about ChatGPT. I will get worried about ChatGPT when ChatGPT has legs and arms and it can go to offices and it can start talking to people. Then I will start getting very worried. Because a lot of times what we are saying is that ChatGPT has a lot of knowledge. It has, but all the knowledge that it has is from the public domain. Now, I was very interested in curiosity, and the interest started 7 years ago when I was having a conversation with my best friend, who is an entrepreneur in the island of Mykonos. So they have hotels, they have bars, they have restaurants. It's one of the biggest families in the islands having very good businesses. So on that particular afternoon, I was asking him a lot of questions about his businesses. And at one point, he turns to me and he says, "You must be the most annoying person in the world." And I say, "Why do you say this? This is not very nice. I mean, you are very rude to me. We have been knowing each other since we were 7 years old." He said, "Man, we are 45 and you are still asking a lot of questions. What is wrong with you?" And I said, "What is wrong with me? We are old. We're not supposed to ask so many questions." And I said to him, "That's your problem. My problem is to ask a lot of questions." So this actually started this project. I tried to figure out what was wrong with me. And I tried to figure out whether there were other people who had the same problem, whether there were other people who were suffering from the same disease, which means curiosity. And then I started, doing the interviews, and I will tell you more. And then the whole thing, as Nikos was saying earlier, was this book, which is called Purposeful Curiosity. So it's curiosity with an intention, with a purpose. So I find something that I'm very interested in, and I would like to actually start delving deeper, open a folder, learn more about something. And the book is sold, as you can imagine, to different locations around the world, to different shops, but it was highly featured in terms of Selfridges and Harrods. So another friend of mine actually on LinkedIn sent me a message saying, "Is your book as expensive as other things that Harrods has?" Because Harrods has luxury products. And I said, my book is a luxury product. And then I started joking about this. And I said to him, "I will explain why I'm talking about this. Because it was written by human, edited by humans, and hopefully it will be read by humans." So the book was written before November 2022. So interestingly, because it was done by a human, in this case it's me, it had to be more expensive than the books that are coming after November 2022, where it's going to be a collaboration between humans and machines. So that's one thing. I don't think that we need to spend a lot of time on the definition of curiosity. I think it's a desire to learn. So all of us are curious, especially you guys who are here are very curious, right? So you have overcome a lot of problems, like traffic, the football games, the heat wave. So there are a lot of things that you have actually fought instead of being here, with the only objective to learn something. tonight. So this is a lot of pressure for me. So I have to give you something, right? So I have to actually dig deeper in my mind to see, what I can tell you more. But the interesting thing is that when we are very young, like curiosity, and Nikos it was very interesting that you said purposeful creativity, because creativity and curiosity go together. And I will go back to this. But it's interesting, when we are kids, what happens is that kids ask, when they're under 4 years old, around 73 questions per day. So if you look at other studies have shown that, especially there was a study which was done in the UK that showed that a daughter asked their mother in the UK around 300 questions per day. 300 questions, right? So you lose the will to live after, question number 101, something like that, right? So, but then there is another problem. They go to school, and then the teachers are asking 291 questions per day. So what happens throughout, the school years? Kids are conditioned to answer and not to ask questions. So answering is a problem to me, because a lot of times we have to spend more time on the questioning part. So sometimes we're very, and we're living in a very interesting era where everything is fast. Fast. We don't spend a lot of time saying, let's hold on for a second. Let's go back, let's think about the question more rather than the answers or the insights that we would like to gain. So this is the one problem. The second problem is that adults ask, on average, oh my God, 20 questions per day. And this is on a good day, right? So how many questions did you ask today? Dora, how many questions?
I think more than 30 questions today.
Oh my God.
Very good day.
Yes, it was a good day. How did you feel? I mean, you said it with a smile on your face. So you, okay.
I'm a curious person.
Yes, I can.
Because I'm a woman, but I'm a curious person.
Okay. That's very good. How about the others? Anybody else who has actually asked more questions than Dora? Let's make this very competitive. Let's gamify this. Okay, we can go back to this. What I'm always asking before I start is, what do you think curiosity brings us? So what is the benefit that we get by being curious? And let me open this to the floor. Yes? Knowledge. Great. Thank you. Yes?
Connecting the dots in a different way.
Love it.
I extremely agree with you. Creativity and curiosity go hand in hand.
Yes.
So actually, I feel, connecting the dots in your own way. It's the way that you interpret things after the question, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of being creative, please slow down for the interpreters. Okay. I will slow down then.
Could you slow down for the interpreters? This is a question.
Normally I can't, because when I get passionate, I speak very fast. That's the problem. So I have to actually manage my passion tonight. Yes. Anything else which is a benefit?
Another question.
Tell us.
That's the benefit. The answer to one creates another question.
Yes.
That's a benefit.
Yes. That's the benefit.
Yes.
Yeah. So, very slowly, I have to say that by being curious, we survived. And we will continue surviving, because what we are doing is that we are scanning the environment. And by scanning the environment, by being curious about the environment, what do? We find new ways of solving problems. So we're always adapting, as you were saying, Costas. The other thing is that it makes us happy. Two things make us happy in a day. The first one is that when we feel that we can depend on somebody, so when we know that I can depend on somebody, so this makes us very happy. It gives us the enjoyment. The second thing is when we learn something new. Two things. So that I know that I can depend on other people. The second thing is when I learn something new. When I work in projects and when I work with students and I hear something very interesting, I said, wow, I would have never thought that, right? So that time I say, oh my God, I'm doing the best job in the world, right? Because I'm learning something interesting. It also makes us very warm and attractive. And I'm not going to put my face, which is the attractive and the warm face. So what is the attractive and the warm face? Is that the face which leans forward. So instead of me leaning backwards, I lean forward. And something that we do, that we don't do, that we should do, is using more the three magical words. Tell me more. A lot of times what happens is that we have colleagues who are saying, I'm researching this. And then we say, great for you. And then we turn our backs. Or in our families, I have done this, great. And then we turn our backs. And what happens? I mean, let's role play a different alternative. I'm researching this. Tell me more about this. the whole interaction changes. So what changes? We saw interest. When we saw interest, it means that we come across as warm. So people like us more. And I'm not talking about faking it. I'm talking about being authentically interested. Something that I had, and I have to actually thank my family for this, is that I have always been interested in learning from other people. And I have always been curious, and I have always been a tinkerer. So I'm from a different generation, as you can see. So I was very lucky because my friend was a screwdriver, and I was opening a lot of things as a child. Sometimes I didn't know how to put these things back. So I ended up having a lot of junk in my room. So when my parents were in my room, they said, okay, you have a lot of junk. I said, yeah, I do. So did you find something interesting? I said, yes, I did. Okay, do you want more money? I said, yes, I do. So, and thank God that they never said, no, we're not going to give you more money. They said, well, we're going to give you more money about you exercising, for instance, your curiosity, because I wanted to figure out how things work. Nothing has changed. Now we want to figure out, as business school professors, how organizations work, right? So it's exactly the same thing. So we still have a screwdriver, and we have a purpose, and we're focusing on this. It leads to higher achievement. When we like something, what do we do? I'll tell you something interesting. As all of you, I also suffer from frivolous curiosity or casual curiosity. What do I mean? You know, I scroll on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, and then I'm saying, oh my God, I spent, you know, an hour today or 2 hours, and it was the total waste, right? Sometimes it's not a total waste. Sometimes there is something interesting emerging. But most of the times, 95% is waste, right? Maybe 5% I can be lucky. So what happened was that when after this conversation in Mykonos about me being annoying and having a problem, I said, okay, I have to research this. The moment that I said I found something interesting, everything else disappeared. No social media, I wasn't distracted. This became my only purpose, and I will go back to this. And when it happens, what do we do? This leads to achievement. This leads to making progress. So there are a lot of benefits that come by being focused. And of course, from the thing that I was saying earlier, in terms of empathy, you know, when we're asking somebody a question and we are actively listening, so it's not a question for the sake of a question, it's a question because we would like to figure out an answer. So we are learning how other cultures, for instance, think, how other people think in terms of the different cultures, in terms of different professions, from a lot of different things. So what happens to us? We are becoming more knowledgeable about other people. So this helps us. The algorithm is enriched. And of course, it's associated with living longer. Why is that? Because as we are growing older, what happens? Do we become more adventurous, or do we become more set in our own ways? A lot of people are saying, yeah. So is it more adventurous? No. We become set in our own ways, right? The same applies for the work that we do, for the friends who we have. So a lot of times what we're saying is that we have to, in a way, revamp the relationships or bring in new people in our lives or create new projects. So the novelty actually builds curiosity, and the novelty keeps us young because we have to start from scratch, right? So I think this is a very important thing. From the personal point of view, in terms of business, scientific curiosity, academic curiosity, business curiosity leads to breakthroughs. X-rays, LED, you know, all these technologies were led by one thing. There was a question. How does this work? Why this thing doesn't work? So what can we do? As I was saying earlier, it reduces group conflict. Why? Because when two people have an interaction, they talk to each other, what happens? They are present. When I teach, I have this beautiful, ugly habit. My students hate me about this, but I said, can you get rid of the devices? Right? I'm here, I'm present, and I would like you to be here for you to also be present. Which means I would like us to have a collaboration, a relationship, an interaction. When you have the device in front of you, it's a problem. And studies have shown that when we are trying to multitask, which is, I'm looking at my email, I'm trying to actually understand what the other person is saying or what the academic is saying. I'm also thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner tonight because I love food. So I'm multitasking. Our IQ drops by 10 points temporarily. To the brain, cognitively, it's heavy, right? Now, when I start teaching, I say to my students, so if you multitask, your IQ temporarily would drop by 10 points. Now, if you smoke marijuana, your IQ will drop by 5 points. So actually, multitasking is worse than smoking marijuana. And my students in London grasp this thing, they isolate everything else, and then they question, so I spark their curiosity. And they ask me, so what happens if I multitask and I also smoke marijuana? I say to them, this is not a question that I'm interested in finding out, because I've never done drugs, and I have reached, I've gone beyond the point of experimenting nowadays. So this is not a question that I'm interested. But the thing is the following. We have to be present. We have to actually listen to each other. We have to actually use our empathy. So it reduces group conflict, better performance, job satisfaction. And in marketing, if we give away some information, modern information, it sparks curiosity. And I will give you an example later today. So what is the problem? Casual, frivolous curiosity, which means that I spend a lot of time, being curious, asking questions, and then doing nothing about, my curiosity. So that's why I came with the other term. But before I go to the purposeful curiosity term, I have some questions for you. How many times do we check our phone every day? Oh my God, I can see people going or people going, oh my God, yes, I know, it's bad. You cannot stop, Dora.
Probably we do not stop
Yes.
checking
Yes.
all the time.
Absolutely, and I will shock you with the facts. How many hours do you spend online on average per day? Oh my God. 0. You are my personal God. Thank you. We need to talk later to tell me your secret. How long do we spend on social media per day? There are answers on those questions, right? So there are answers, and these answers are on average. We're not talking about outliers. We're not talking about extremes. On average, okay. Let's see. 344, on average, we check our phones per day. On average, right? There are some people who are actually using or checking out their phones more. How many hours do we spend online? On average, 7. And on social media, more than 2 hours. Online meaning YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, anything, right? Because if it's not, entertainment, it may be TV or it may be something else. Interestingly, to go back to Google, the queries increased 10% per year. So the things that we ask. And interestingly, out of the trillions of searches every year, 15% are new. So Google has not seen those questions. So we are curious as a planet, right? So what happens to all this curiosity? So I was very interested in that. So why a lot of people ask those questions, and we don't see all these trillions of questions or a subsegment of these new questions being translated into something like a product, a service, a new educational program or something to address poverty or war, blah, 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 blah. So I was very curious in this. So I said, there must be some people who channel their curiosity. There must be some people who are intentional with their curiosity. They are saying, I'm interested in this. I'm going to open a folder on my computer or in my office, and I will start learning more about this. So I became curious about curiosity. It sounds very interesting. So when I'm saying this out loud, it sounds crazy. But this is what really happened. So I said, what is the difference? It's about steering, for instance, our curiosity towards a particular goal, which is a career. It's a pivot. It's a product. As I was saying, it's something specific that we care about, something that we care. Okay, something that we care. Now, the problem is that a lot of us care about a lot of things. That's the problem. And that's why I showed you my bio. So I care about investing because the money that we invest into the startups, whatever money we make, it comes back to our school. So I have vested interest to have a good return in terms of our investments. I also care about my students. I also care about, for instance, humanity. I care about a lot of things. So how can we become purposefully curious? That was my research question when I started this project 7 years ago. So I worked on this 7 years ago. I started working on this 7 years ago. So I have been working on this for a while. And I didn't tell you this, but as a researcher, I'm spending a lot of time on the field. So I have a very nice office with a fantastic view, but I don't spend a lot of time. So I spend a lot of time in organizations. I spend a lot of time in libraries, finding databases, archives. I'm spending a lot of time with people. I'm observing people. Of course, they know that they are observed, right? So don't think that I'm a weirdo. They know. So they have already signed a form that it's okay for me to observe them, it's okay for me to actually interview them, so everything is legal. So for this project, I interviewed a lot of people, so I went on a mission, and I wanted to actually add a little bit of drama, so I put an image from Mission Impossible. So as you can imagine, I'm not that person in the image. Tom Cruise is there. So, but it was a mission for me. The other thing that I did was I read a lot of interesting books. So there are a lot of books on curiosity, not as good as mine now, but there are. And a lot of interesting articles, a lot of podcasts, a lot of YouTube videos. So there is knowledge out there about how we can actually become more curious, more creative, more imaginative, which is what I believe. Then I started interviewing people. So I interviewed around 63 people from Japan, from Tokyo to Silicon Valley. And some of those interviews were done before COVID. Some of those interviews were done during COVID. And it was very interesting because before COVID, I could actually go and meet these people in their offices. And you learn a lot when you meet people in their office, right? So during COVID, I didn't have this luxury. So I had to interview these people via Zoom, Teams, online. And there is a range of these people. So I have from star architects, Formula One engineers, Google guys, Michelin-star chefs. And I also have this guy in the middle, the Norwegian guy, who is called Håkan Højdahl. This guy is an investigative journalist. I have done in my career more than 300 interviews in different projects. This has been the most difficult interview that I have ever done. These guys were focusing on a very sensitive subject. What they managed to do, himself with a hacker, was to expose one of the largest child abuse sites. Two people actually brought down the largest child abuse site. Having said that, they also found 90,000 IPs. These are the people who are downloading and uploading, as you can imagine, child abusive material. And then a lot of people are asking me, how many people were involved in this project? Two. Then a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my people that I'm working, they're always saying, we are understaffed. What should I have told them? You are understaffed. Two people bringing down one of the biggest, for instance, websites. Of course, they went to the dark side, right? Of course, they had a lot of setbacks. Of course, they had to deal with a lot of problems. And this is interesting about curiosity. As Costas was saying earlier, when somebody's curious, the first thing that they do is that, or they expose or they say or they demonstrate is humility. You cannot be curious and arrogant. It's impossible. Then you are a fake curious and an authentic arrogant. So the first thing is you ask a question. It shows that you don't know something. So you have to be humble. The second thing, a trait, which happens is that you are actively listening. A lot of people were asking me, what would you say is the secret of, your career? Two things, curiosity and actively listening. I have a friend of mine who says the following: you are one of the few academics who I know who listens. And I said to him, I consider this as the biggest compliment. And I said to him, why do you say this? Because a lot of them, love, their voices. They like to talk. But the same in our line of business, in terms of research, we have to listen. So we have, in a way, be quiet and then listen to what people are telling us. So these two people listened a lot. These two people hit a lot of walls, as you can imagine. So when you go undercover, it's not easy, right? So they hit a lot of walls. Curiosity is full of walls. It's full of obstacles. It's full of setbacks. And then I was asking, Håkan, so how the project must have lasted for a long period of time. He said, yes. How many years? 2 years. Or I can't remember, maybe more than 2 years. So I can imagine at points, Håkan or his partner saying, I had enough. I don't want to do this anymore, right? Which happened. But then this was so close to them that they carried on. They wanted to actually solve that particular puzzle, which was a big puzzle because the topic is very sensitive. Then I interviewed other people who are having, for instance, video game companies, Polar Explorers, hedge fund managers, AI chips manufacturers. So it was a range in terms of genders, a range in terms of age groups, a range in terms of geographies. So it was very interesting to actually interview a lot of people. So the first thing that they told me is that the most important thing is to find the one thing that you want to spend some time on. This is the most important thing. So all of us have a lot of things. So how do we find the one? So this was my first, let's say, group of questions. So lovely people, lovely curious people, how do you find the one each? So this was the first group of questions that I was asking them. So the first thing that they said was that we have to push the boundaries, right? So we have to focus on something which is hard, which is challenging, that nobody has done in the past, or maybe few people have done in the past. Something that will help us move our communities, it will help us move our companies, it will help us move our, for instance, societies. So something that pushes, for instance, the boundaries. The second thing that they told me was that it has to be something that we are emotionally connected to, something that we care about, right? So I cared about curiosity. These guys cared about bringing down the biggest child abuse website, right? They cared about it. This was, for them, this was their goal. It became an obsession, an addiction. You know, they wanted to solve this thing. So it was personal to them. And the third thing was that it has to be something that you get, that you understand. So my previous projects have been on creativity, have been on innovation. So as I was saying earlier, curiosity, creativity, innovation, imagination, all of these are brother, sister, cousins. So when I started researching the topic, I knew something about it. So it felt familiar. So if I want, for instance, to develop a company to send rockets, it will take me, as you can imagine, longer because I'm not a trained engineer. So it will be more, impossible for me. Now, the thing is that we have to understand this. So we have to find something that we like, that we find challenging, and that we can relate to from a cognitive perspective, something that we understand. Then it can become our each. Now, I have a question for you. How many of you have an each, but you don't have the time? One, brave. I also wanted to raise my hand. I have new itches to actually scratch, and I don't have the time, right? Or, life takes over, as we were saying. So it's interesting that all of us have a lot of things that we want to research, to delve deeper, to dig, but we don't have, for instance, the time. Solutions? I'm interested. How do we go about this? By the way, when I teach, it's very interactive. So when I ask a question, I'm expecting an answer. Yes?
Wait earlier in the morning?
Yes, that's a great answer, yes. So we find the time. Yes? Yep?
Maybe prioritize the questions that you have.
I love it.
Because without prioritization, it's chaos. I mean, you cannot.
Yes.
You will be in too many places at once.
Yes, and we cannot. So we have to prioritize. We have to find the one, and we have to say, let's spend more time on this.
Exactly. And with what topic are you more emotionally connected?
Yes.
Research.
Yeah.
Because you may have like 10 tabs, but maybe you have a top 3 or something, but then the top 3 needs to be prioritized. Which comes first, second, third?
Yes, it's very interesting because we're working on a paper based on this research, and a lot of us start with, as you were saying, 10, 3, 1. So we have to actually, it's a funnel. It's like innovation. It starts with a lot of ideas, and it has to become something like this so that we can move forward. Then the next thing that my discussants told me was that at one point you have to go down the rabbit hole. And a lot of people are saying, but this is a bad thing, right? And I said, not anymore, because everybody's scratching the surface. Everybody's going like this. Nobody goes deep, right? So we have to go deep. A lot of people are afraid of starting something. I have people at the university, I have people that I work with, and they say, can I do this? And I said, why are you asking me? What do you want me to tell you? Do you want me to give you permission? You have permission to do whatever you want. So a lot of people, we live in an era where a lot of us are interested or are focusing on getting permission from somebody else. That somebody else has to be us. So this is interesting. Then we have to declare it to the world. The moment that I said, I'm starting a new project. What is the new project? Curiosity. My colleagues said, Costas, you know nothing about curiosity. What you know is creativity, innovation, paradoxes, blah, 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 blah. You're going to have a problem. You're going to get fired. You're not going to write a paper for the next 10 years. Your career will go down, the drain. There is this narrative. So I had this narrative on my head. Then there is an external narrative. So there is an inner voice and an external voice, right? And then these people, and then I was thinking, yes, they are right, but I have been doing that particular research that they are referring to for the last 20 years. And to be honest with you, yes, you become better, more efficient, faster, but it can become a little bit boring. So what I wanted at that point was a new project. I wanted to revamp what I was doing. So the interesting thing is that these people, after they realized that I'm not moving away, so I'm doing this, then they started helping me. So people who actually said, you're an idiot, you're going to lose your job, you're going to get embarrassed, you will be ashamed of yourself, blah, 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 blah. After a year, me doing the project, they started sending me articles, for instance, people to interview. The same people, right? Not different people, the same people. So a lot of times when we declare something publicly, we will have some very negative reactions. It happened to me another time. So what do we have to do? We have to go all in or gradually. So there was a group of people who I interviewed where they said, I had enough of this, I want to start a business. So they went all in. I have others who said, yeah, I'm doing this, but I would like to actually experiment a bit. Spend a couple of days per week. Then if it works, I'm going to actually invest more time. I'm going to invest more money. So they were dipping their toes gradually. So a couple of years ago, after making progress with the project, I'm with my friends, and then I take my godson to the surf club. And because I wanted to spend more time with my godson, I said to him, I think that I should start learning how to windsurf, because he was doing windsurf. He looks like me from my head to the bottom. He says, no. I said, what do you mean no? He said, no, you won't be able. I said, oh my God, kids are so honest and brutally honest. But then he realized that I was a little bit sad. He says, no, you can start learning kite surfing. Me? Yes, kite surfing is easier. At least you can start or you can cruise in 5 days. I said, okay, most probably they know something because they spend, the whole morning on the beach, on the club. So most probably they have seen other people worse than me to actually do this. And I started this. But before I started, I go back to my family. I said, my family, I will start, I think that I want to learn more about kite surfing. My daughter started crying. Started crying, yes. This is, said to me, Dad, why are you doing this? You don't love us anymore, blah, blah, blah. And my wife told me, it's no, you shouldn't be doing this. And if you do it, then you have to give us, the passwords to all the bank accounts, to everything that you have. So I said, you're supposed, guys, to actually support me. You're supposed to actually help me. You're not supposed to actually go against me. And I didn't listen to them again. So there is something wrong with me. And as you can see, nothing happened, right? So by the way, my godson was right. The fifth lesson I did, from here, maybe I moved over there. And then I dropped, like a cake, which was super embarrassing, but it was fine. But the whole thing was that a lot of people will try to project their own fears, their own, for instance, uncertainties or problems that they have or concerns that they have. So in the book, I refer to them as dream stealers. These are the people who are stealing the dream from us. And of course, I'm joking about this, but there are a lot of people who are surrounding us, either at work or in our families. So it does happen. So after we declared it, which I think it's a very nice thing, because when you declare it, then what happens? Ownership. You become the owner. You put a flag, there's a stamp. Guys, I'm doing this. Boom. Then everybody knows about this. So there is no way back after this. Then you have to become an expert fast. So again, I have another beautiful, ugly habit. Whenever I'm doing research, I'm entering fields that I know nothing about. Nothing. When I'm saying nothing, so I remember when I was doing during my PhD, my first case study, which means I spent time in a company, I knew nothing about creativity. But then my supervisor, my advisor, told me, you shouldn't be reading the literature, because if you read the literature, then the literature will actually, in a way, pollute your thoughts, contaminate you. You will be going to the field and you will be looking for particular things. But when you go with a clean mind, you can find more interesting things. And he was right. When you go somewhere and you know nothing, first of all, people help you. When you say, this is my first day, and I don't know a lot of things about creativity, I don't know a lot of things about curiosity, people try to help you. There is an alternative. When you go to a place and I know everything about this, people will not help you. People will consider you as a threat or as competition. But if you're actually honest and you're saying, I don't know a lot of things about this, people will lean forward and they will try to help you. So people have to become experts relatively quickly when they're doing something. So the first thing that people have been doing, especially the ones who I interviewed, that they go back to school. Either they register, in the program, or they develop their own curriculum. So they go online, they talk to some academics, they go to, or in the US, they go to a community college or to a college, to get more information. So this is extremely important because we need to have the knowledge. The IPO model, input, actually helps the process so that we can have an output. Then they build their own community. They need to find a tribe. So when I started this project, nobody was doing this. So I'm saying, oh, I'm on my own. Then I started, Googling, who are the others who are doing curiosity? So I found Spencer Harrison, who has been researching curiosity, I don't know, maybe 15 years at INSEAD. So I started talking to Spencer. I said, okay, how are you doing? What are the things, what is interesting? So you need to find your tribe. You need to find people who are speaking, a similar language. Then you have to become a fantastic person in terms of conversation, a fantastic somebody who does an amazing interview, having an amazing discussion, right? And this cannot happen overnight. It takes some time. I remember when I did my first interview and now. My first interview I was shaking. Now I'm not shaking. So, and then you have to bring everything in terms of the insights together. So it's like a puzzle. So you're bringing those pieces together because you talk to different people. The thing that I would like to focus more is the bit which is about how we can become better in conversations. And my first, let's say, suggestion is to be annoying. What do I mean by this? To ask questions, right? So staying annoyed, being annoying, and especially, as I have showed you, as we are growing older, curiosity drops, creativity drops, imagination drops. So how can we keep them alive? How can we keep them, as we had them as kids? So if we want to stay annoying and we want to actually ask questions, the first thing is study people who have done this or who are doing this. Study questions, people who are interviewing people. And the best people, of course, are academics, of course. So I'm legally obliged to say this. And then are journalists. Journalists are amazing people to study from. And there are a lot of very good journalists. I mean, I have this because this is US, this is UK, but there are fantastic journalists here. So one of the secrets of journalists is research. They do a lot of research before they interview somebody. Some cases, they go to extremes talking to people. Most of the times they do secondary research, which means they go and they find what has already been written in terms of articles and in terms of newspapers, blogs, et cetera, et cetera. But it's nice to study people who are doing this for a living, people who are asking questions. And an interesting thing to do is to achieve trust and rapport. That's the most important thing. So I remember, this is a long time ago, and I have done a lot of research in Silicon Valley in terms of innovation. And I remember this was 2001, 23 years ago. And I remember I went to this company in Palo Alto, and they're doing some amazing things. So this company, it's a consultancy that develops products. When I'm talking products, I'm talking about physical products. So, for instance, Microsoft was going, Apple, blah, 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 all these companies, they were saying, can you do this product for us? And I was interested to study consultancy because I was interested to see how innovation happens under the gun. What do I mean by this? So you have a client who had a terrible experience with another consultancy, and then they go to them, because I studied the top 7 of the 10, and they tell them, yeah, we had a very bad experience, so we would like you to do this product. Can you do it? Yes. How much will this be? Money is not an issue. The problem is we would like to have this product done, in a month. And this is a problem, right? In the corporate world, when a corporate develops a product, it takes months, half a year. But in the consultancies, maybe you have, 6 weeks, 3 weeks. That's why the money is good, because you have to work, overnight. So there are a lot of these interesting companies. So I'm going the first day. The company has arranged for me to interview people from 8 o'clock until my last interview was 4 o'clock, right? 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So as you can imagine, I'm doing all-day interviews. I have a tape recorder. This is 23 years ago, right? So tape recorder means that I have a tape. I'm saying this for a lot of people who haven't seen a tape recorder before. So I have my tape recorder, I'm changing tapes, because every interview is another tape. I have to carry everything, I'm stressed not to lose something, and then it's my last interview, 4 o'clock. The last interview is with the CEO of the company. He's also tired, I'm also tired, and when you're tired, you know what happens. Your body also tells you when you're tired. So instead of me being like this, I was something like this. You know, I was very casual. This is something that you shouldn't be doing. Don't try this at home. So I was like this, very casual. But then at one point, the founder says something very interesting. He says to me, you know, in what we do, there are a lot of paradoxes. This is what I was researching then. I said, so what do you mean? Our business grows when we can win awards, meaning we can be creative, and when we can have good clients, meaning they can give us money, right? And from me, going from here, I lean forward like this. And I said to him, I'm very interested in this. Can you tell me more? The guy also leaned forward. So at that point, what happened was that we developed trust, we developed rapport. Then I said to him, are you the only one who thinks like this, or the whole company thinks like this? He says to me, can you wait for 5 minutes? I said, yes. He went back to his office, and then he brought me the values that they have, the culture, the values, the principles. And he shows me the 5 values that they have. One of them was that we need to balance, or we need to practice, the balance of the end, which means that we have to do this and that. We have to go for creativity and profitability. And then I said, oh my God, this is like a gold mine. I found something very interesting. This is, 20-something years ago. Now a lot of people know how to actually do it. But this was the first time that you had a leader talking about how they balance profitability with creativity. Because until that point, everybody was thinking that in order for you to be creative, you shouldn't be thinking about money a lot of time. Or in order for you to be profitable, you need to cut down, for instance, the creativity. So people were going for a compromise, right? So the guy was saying, yeah, we can achieve this and that. So rapport, trust, they're extremely important. The other thing is to ask open-ended questions. What, why, how, etc., etc. Not dichotomous questions, Does this happen here? Yes. And then it's done. What do you mean, yes? Can you tell me more? But you didn't ask me a question. So open-ended questions actually develop this kind of trust and rapport that we're talking about. We shouldn't be asking questions that we can find on Google or now on ChatGPT. So if you ask whether Costas Andriopoulos is a prolific author, now you have the answer. Yes, I am. Thank God that now I know this as well, and I'm empowered as a human being. So we shouldn't be asking those questions. The next thing, which is extremely interesting, when you are asking a question, can this question be answered relatively quickly? A lot of people are asking me, are there stupid questions? We have to say no. But in reality, there are. Okay. If you have an organization that is not asking, then you need to start from somewhere. But if you have an organization that is asking questions, then you have to become better. Why am I saying this? A question that a lot of people ask us, I'm not the only one who is asked that question, is the following. What is your favorite book? Oh my God, I hate this question. Why? Because it's going to take me 2 years to respond to that, because I've read hundreds of books, right? We have all read hundreds of books. The same applies for music. What's your favorite song? I hate this. It's going to take me, 5 years because I love music more. Or movies, 10 years because I love movies more. So it requires a lot of time. This is an okay question. I don't want to say stupid, but it's an okay question. Now, if we want to actually improve it, we can ask it in the following way. Which is the book that you have gifted the most? Then what happens? From 5 years, it becomes something like this. I always remember the book that I have gifted, right? But not the books that I have read and liked. And a lot of people are asking me, so which is the book that you have gifted? And I'm always saying the same thing, my book. That's a joke, by the way. So I know the books that I like, and I remember, but I remember more the books that I gift and the person who I give this to. Because there is a relationship there. The same applies for something else. What makes us happy? Oh my God, another question that takes a lot of time. Where would you like me to start? What makes me happy? But if we reframe this in the following way, what do you like doing after work? Then all of us know, yeah, maybe I like writing, maybe I like watching, maybe I like reading, maybe I like spending time, with my family or with my friends. So we know what we do. So there is a quality in terms of the questions. As you do, I also travel a lot. And I hate this. When you check out, you know what they say, what they tell you. How was your stay? By the way, I was in Boston for a conference, and I checked out, and the person in the lobby said to me, "How was your stay?" And I was leaving over there. She wasn't interested to hear anything from me. It was in the script. She had to ask this, or he has to, or they have to ask this. They are not interested. How was your stay? And they were running from me, okay, like I was doing something wrong. So it's interesting for us to realize that this is not a question that will lead to very interesting insights if you're at the hotel. Because what do we normally respond? It was okay, or it was fine. But normally, it wasn't fine. It wasn't okay. Now, we can reframe this. What could we have done to improve your stay? What is the difference here? No, I'm asking you. I want to take a break. So what is the difference here between the two? Yes? Love it? What else?
The second question, it's more interesting, so interesting.
Yes.
Person.
Yes. It shows interest from their side, right? Yes. What else does it give away?
We make the other person think.
Yes.
So actually, we make them think and come up with ideas.
Yes.
So they spend more time thinking because they have to think before they answer the question.
Yes. Absolutely. I love it. Yes.
It shows commitment to action.
Commitment to action. I would like to hear you so that I can do something about it. Right?
It's more focused than
More focused.
general.
Yes. Very focused. Okay. We are also accepting that there are things that we can improve here. The same applies inside organizations. Are you facing any challenge? Line managers ask their team members. And of course, the poor person is going to say, me? Challenges? Never. Right? Where have you seen challenges in this team? Why am I the only one who has challenges? Right? Again, if we reframe this, so what challenges are you facing right now? Again, it's the same thing. What we're saying is, I face challenges, everybody faces challenges, so let's bring it to the open, right? So there is something about the way that we ask questions. There is something. So I'm always thinking about this, and I'm always asking people, so what is a good question? In different industries, tell me, what do you think is a good question from your side? And I'm collecting all these questions. I'm creating like a library of questions at the moment.
We
And
don't have problems, we have challenges.
yes. Then we play with the words. Then there was this very interesting study done by a couple of academics that they were at UPenn. And then they said, by the way, the title of the paper is, there is such a thing as a stupid question. That's the title of the paper. So it's an experiment, and what do they do? So that we have the academics, and they do an experiment with some participants. So the experiment is that we have a seller who is selling an iPod. The iPod has crashed a couple of times, so the iPod, as you can imagine, does not work. What the academics want to figure out is what kind of questions sellers have to ask so that they will force or encourage the buyer to disclose that there is a problem with the iPod. Because if you're selling something, you will never say, there is a problem. So this is an interaction that we're having. A question for you. What kind of questions can we ask the seller to find out if the iPod is broken? Of course, as buyers, we don't know that it's broken. What kind of questions? Who buys things online? You know, people who are buying things online from auction houses, most probably they ask those kind of questions.
Why are you selling?
Yes, we start. Why are you selling it? Anything else that comes to mind? Anything. We're brainstorming here. This is not a normal class where we name and shame people. Yes? Is it broken? I like also the body language that you have, yes.
When was the last time you have used it?
When was the last time you used it, right? So we can think of questions to ask. Okay. This is super interesting. What can you tell me about the iPod? 8% only disclose that there is a problem with the iPod. There is a hierarchy in the way that we are asking questions, right? It doesn't have any problems, does it? Okay, 61% disclose that there is a problem with the iPod. What problems does it have? 89% disclose. So what is the hierarchy here? What is the quality? How does it change? And a lot of people are asking me, is this a cultural thing? I mean, there are some people or some cultures which are very direct. There are some cultures which are going like this. So what is the difference between the question at the bottom and the question at the top? Focused?
Direct to direct.
Yes, indirect to direct. Okay, very focused, very direct question. I love it. So again, this is something that we have to focus on. How we ask those questions, because what is the objective in life? Is to get very interesting insights quickly. So framing the questions can give those insights very quickly. Then the other thing that happened was that what these people told me is that you have to be surrounded by curious people. Things shouldn't come always from you. So other people need to bring you problems, puzzles, dilemmas, inconsistencies. I love dilemmas, inconsistencies, puzzles, because it sparks my curiosity. Consistencies are boring. And I think with the way that management is going, is that what we have to teach in business schools is how leaders, how managers need to deal with inconsistencies, to become comfortable with discomfort, to be energized by inconsistencies. So there is inconsistency. Instead of trying to hide it, to actually bring it in the open and discuss this. Why is this thing happening? What can we learn? Because if everybody else doesn't do it, then you have a competitive advantage. I've studied a lot of companies, for instance, about this thing in terms of innovation, incremental breakthrough, creativity, and profitability. There are some companies which are saying we have to discuss this in the open. How can we become better in terms of both profitability, both creativity? Yes?
Isn't that, in essence, Kaizen? Whenever there's an issue in a Toyota factory, everybody stops and they discuss the
Yes,
problem.
yes. Yes, but you're absolutely right, and I love it. But it doesn't happen, in a lot of companies. There are some cultures which actually prevent this from happening because they're trying to hide everything under the rug. But there are some cultures where they discuss things. A culture that discusses things is a culture that actually has questions, people are curious, and they would like to figure out an answer. So I developed this. It took me 2 days to come up with this thing. And my students are brutally honest. They said, this second one, which is the unashamedly passionate, who thought of this? And I said, my editor actually thought of this. So I have an excuse on this one. So it's not me. So it's the editor's fault. But what is interesting about this is that you need to be surrounded by people who are team workers. They can play with other people in the sandbox. People who are very passionate about the same topic as you are. What is a proxy of passion? People who cannot stop talking about that particular subject, right? Then you're surrounded by very passionate people. Setbacks. There are always going to be setbacks, always. So when I started this project, I wasn't getting the response that I was looking for. People didn't want to talk to me. I said, I'm doing something wrong. This thing made me curious. So how can I turn this around? I was using emails. I'm trying to find the email. I was sending, the research project, and then I was inquiring, can I spend some time with you? Can I interview you? Blah, 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 blah. The response rate was not very good. Then I said, the people that you are trying to interview some of them are very high profile. So most probably their email, their inbox is like a highway. They receive thousands of those emails. So I said, you have to be creative. So what did I do differently? I wrote them a letter. So I took letter-headed paper, I personalized it, and I wrote the letter, I folded it, I put it on an envelope, I put a stamp, and I posted it to them. The response rate went up to the roof. I interviewed some people who told me the first thing is, we were curious to actually meet you because you are the only one who still sends letters. If it works for you, nothing against it, right? You know, a goal achieved. So there are setbacks that we have. The problem is to figure out how we can overcome these setbacks. So you're looking for people who are going to actually recover quickly, people who are great thinkers, independent thinkers, people who have hobbies. It's very good to have a hobby because it means that you can connect the dots, as you were saying earlier. You can bring something that happens here to here. You can see similarities. They want to act as well. At one point, you have to make the leap, right? It's not only about being curious, so you have to act. And then you want people who are going to bring you surprises, who are going to bring you problems, who are going to bring you challenges. So because, as Nico said, I'm the Associate Dean for the MBA program, so we have 4 programs. I run a team of 30 people. Every academic year when we start, I'm having this conversation with the different teams. I said, what are the questions that we want to address this year? Instead of saying goals, you know, blah, 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 I said, what are the questions that we want to solve? What are the puzzles that we want to solve? When you are asking people to think along those lines, they see it very differently. Before City, I used to be at Cardiff University, and I used to run a department, which means I had an agenda, I had 30 people again. So in those meetings, these meetings were not well attended. The agenda was, you know, it was the same, blah, blah, blah. So I tried something else. I said, let me change the agenda. Instead of me putting statements, I will convert statements to questions. So how many students joined that program? How much do we spend on coffee? How much do we spend on this? How much do we do on this? It was very interesting because the first time that I did this, everybody came, 100% attendance. But this is not the important thing. The important thing is that everybody came with an answer. It's not an answer. It was a guess. So everybody was engaged. So this is very interesting. We are afraid to talk to people. Loneliness during COVID and after COVID is, again, hitting the roof. We don't talk to our neighbors. We don't develop new relationships. We have problems interacting with other people. Curious people actually talk. I talk to a lot of people. And some people actually think that I'm a weirdo. Some people like it. So when you feel that, you know, somebody considers you as, you know, having a problem, then you stop the conversation. But a lot of times people respond. And they respond in a nice way, right? So they're saying, I understand what you are trying to do. So maybe this is homework for you. Maybe this is not something to do today, but homework, you know. Let's try to talk to people who we don't know, but we meet sometimes. So that's an interesting, for instance, challenge or problem to try to resolve. Then we have to get ready and leap, make the leap. At a particular point, we have to, you know, do something. We have to start a business. We have to take action. So we have to do all these kind of things. And interestingly, a lot of people told me about the following. I was curious about polar explorers. Polar explorers are people who are exploring the polar region. This is the most hostile part of our planet. Everything goes against you, right? So these people are preparing for those kinds of trips maybe years before they do such a thing. Because if something goes wrong, it's not, yes, you know, my P&L or my Q2 is not going to be great. No, it's death, right? So nobody can save you there. So I talked to a couple of polar explorers saying, how long does it take you to prepare for those trips? We are very curious. They have Excel, by the way, for everything. They have Excel sheets. If this happens, what should we do? For everything. When I'm saying for everything, for everything. And I started asking them about this because the polar explorers that I interviewed are the explorers who are doing these expeditions unassisted. What does it mean? No dogs, no vehicles, no kites, which means that unassisted, and you have to carry everything. So I interviewed somebody who has done a trip that actually killed everybody else before. So I cannot imagine him talking to his mother, because he lost his father when he was young, saying, you know, mother, I will do this expedition that actually killed everybody before me. What is your advice? My son, it's better for you not to give this a try. So as you can imagine, which actually happened, not in the way that I'm saying, but there were those kinds of conversations. So as you can imagine, these people who are doing those kind of things talk to a lot of experts, as I was saying earlier. And the interesting bit was that the equipment. So they had to find somebody who does the sled. And the sled has to be from Kevlar or carbon because it's light. They have to find, for instance, jackets. The jackets have to be light. And they have to remove the zips. the zippers that we have, right? Because these add to weight. They were losing a lot of weight because they have to carry everything. By the way, their trip, of course they were successful, was 108 days. 108 days. So they lost a lot of weight. Before they were actually going to that particular expedition, they talked to an oncologist. Because oncologists work with cancer patients who also lose weight very quickly. So there is a lot of research. There is a lot of curiosity happening. So paper, a lot of things which are happening in terms of the garages, and then they have to try this out in a natural setting before they hit, in that particular instance, the Antarctic or the Arctic. A couple of last bits. I've done research in an archive of a very famous company. Now it's $1 trillion company. And I found this memo. I'm actually one of the few people who have access to this memo. Yes, I have to sell this memo at one point. So this memo is written by managers saying, stop using typewriters. Because this company actually invents or tries to revolutionize personal computing. So imagine that you are a company that wants to be known for personal computers, and your people still use the previous technology, which is typewriters. Oh my God, this is embarrassing. It is embarrassing, but it's also, it doesn't help you because you don't get feedback. The moment that you start using something, you can realize how something works or doesn't work, right? So what am I trying to say with this? Again, when you're trying to do something new, people are going to resist. There's going to be resistance. Then we have to become curious. How can we turn these people around? How can we convince them? Okay, are we running out of time? Or? We are. Then last thing. Slow down, yes. This is a very demanding experience for me, a very environment. But I'm very curious now about this environment. I want to spend more time here. So one of the people who I interviewed is the CEO of a company called Rocket Lab. Basically, Rocket Lab is the direct competitor of SpaceX, of Elon Musk. They have a very different business model. Their rockets are smaller, cheaper, and the objective is to send as many satellites through these rockets on lower orbit as frequently as possible. So the business model is very different. They also 3D print parts of the rocket to save cost. I have this photograph here, this image. Then I had the question, what is the most important part of this photograph? Is it the rocket? What is it that is very interesting? What will help this company thrive? What will help this company move forward? Is it the launch pad? What is it? Location. In what way?
It's far away from everybody, no complaints, no lawsuits.
Yes? No complaints, no lawsuits, nothing. I like you. If you were my student, and I use this all the time, if somebody says something excellent, I say, 12 points, as they say in Eurovision. Yes. So, but 12 points, this is a good point. So, in this photograph, the only thing which is important is where the launch pad is, the location. So these people were very curious. So is there a place in our lovely planet where we can launch a rocket, in a more frequent basis than other companies? First of all, because this is our business model. Secondly, because we will learn faster than others, right? So they scanned the globe. And they found this farm in New Zealand where the air traffic is close to non-existent, which means no airplanes go, above their heads, right? So there is no air traffic. That's the first thing. Second thing, regulation, right? Very limited regulation in terms of this. Now, if you are in the US or in Europe, let's assume that you launch a rocket and it doesn't work out. So you launch a rocket, it goes, poof, then you have to wait weeks, months, for the next one. These guys, by finding this location, they gave to themselves a competitive advantage. Why? Because by having the launch pad in that location, they could launch a rocket, if they wished, every 72 hours. If they wished, right? Every 72 hours, they could launch a rocket. So they have a competitive advantage against everybody else. That's why when I'm saying about curiosity, curiosity is something that can help you achieve a lot of things. It can help you in success, in a career, in growth. So it's about being curious. It's about asking the questions. Nikos is looking at me like a death wish, but I can stop here and maybe he's curious.
I remain curious, and you can wrap it up any way you wish.
Okay.
I think everybody remains curious.
Maybe the last bit is how can we spark other people's curiosity? So my daughter comes one day. She says to me, I went to Notting Hill and I went to this bookstore and I bought this book. I said, what is the book about? I don't know. Who wrote the book? I don't know. Sorry, you bought a book where you don't know who actually wrote it and you don't know what this is about. No, no, no. There is an explanation somewhere. So it says, for instance, that it's Victorian time and it's about this. So there is moderate information. When there is moderate information, of course it was wrapped, right? So she didn't know who the author is. She didn't know what the book was about. It was wrapped. But what was interesting is that it had some moderate information. It had some bullet points. The fact that we give away some information sparks people's curiosity. That's why she bought it. Because it was like, a surprise. I want to figure out when I go home what I bought. Now, studies have shown that if you show minimal information, people don't respond. So they want some kind of information to make them tick. So that's one thing. Last thing, and this is final, Nikos, is Bloomberg. You know Bloomberg, right? So Bloomberg has this arm, which is a venture capital fund. So Bloomberg has its own venture capital fund investing into startups. So they wrote this email, and they sent this email to employees, not to entrepreneurs. So their idea was that instead of entrepreneurs coming to us for investment, we will try to figure out which employees in these tech businesses can become entrepreneurs without them knowing about this. So they work with Berkeley, and they figured out some proxies. So they said, if you are working in a tech business, it's very likely that you can start your own business. If you work in a business which is funded by a venture capital fund, most probably, or it's very likely that you will start your own business. So they found a couple of proxies. And by finding these proxies, then they went to LinkedIn, and they started sending those emails to unsuspected employees of companies. And how do we know about this? Because the employees who received those emails thought that this was a spam. So they went to media and they said, we received this, it's a spam, they're going to con us, these are con artists, blah, 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 blah. So because this became public, Bloomberg, and you know what Bloomberg is. Bloomberg is a very traditional, famous, with reputation organization. They went to the media and said, no, 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 this is our goal. Our goal is to find who can become an entrepreneur without them even knowing about this, and create buzz about this. And of course, the response rate, as you can imagine, is quite interesting, because people are saying, so you tell me that I can become an entrepreneur, right? And they said, yes. Okay. Then you start planting a seed to somebody. And when you start planting a seed to somebody, you know what happens. They try to see how they can actually do it. Okay. That was my thing. Yeah. Thank you.
We have been facing a paradox, which I think is related to the... we have a few minutes because we started late. So we're going to take another 10 minutes or so. And we have the opportunity to take questions from the room and also online. If you've been watching online, we have you had the opportunity to send your questions.
Have they asked any questions?
I'll find out in a moment.
Did I convert any people? I need to
find
become
out.
an evangelist, converting people to ask more questions. Yes.
Let's find out.
If they didn't ask, make up questions so that I will feel great.
Oh, I have lots of questions in my notebook. I just want to share first what I think is the paradox here, okay. Because you mentioned in your book, and I think you mentioned here, that we scatter our time and our attention.
Yes.
Yes. Part of the reason why we have limits on time is because we have an online audience which is expecting us to have a certain time window, okay, because online attention is constrained, even though we are talking about slowing down, focusing in, going in depth, right? So I have lots of questions, but I think you should take priority for the next few minutes.
So
yes.
I have an indirect and a direct question.
Yes.
So my indirect question is, as a curious person, but as an engineer and a problem solver, when somebody talks to me, in the back of my mind, I start figuring out a solution, which, So which restricts me from being present. So how can I mitigate that? I'm trying really hard to do that, and I lose information at that period. But I still try to solve the problem. So I'm curious because I'm solving a problem, but I'm not that actively participating in the journey, more or less.
Do you have to be with other people when you're solving the problem? So are you solving the problem as a group, or are you solving the problem as an individual?
As an individual.
Okay. Next question.
Yeah. And the
No,
second,
no. But when we teach, these kinds of topics, especially teams, what we're saying is that, and this is another paradox, you need the I and the we. So it's like a T, right?
Yeah.
So the I will give you the depth. This part will give you the breadth. So the I requires somebody to go somewhere else to go deep on the problem, and then go back to the team and saying, this is what I found, what do you think? And go back again, and then this is how it goes. And then for the other people to do the same. So we need to have some deep focus time, and then go back to the team and discuss, our findings, our insights, our progress, and then have again the time for ourselves.
great. And the second question is related more or less with first. As working in sales and being an engineer at the same time, I want to improve the response rate on a request to meet clients and other people. And
Don't email them. Yes.
Yeah, but even if you call them, that doesn't improve the response rate.
Correct.
So is there any way that we can improve this?
That's a great question that I'm afraid that I have to charge you if I give you the answer. There is always something that makes people tick, that makes people want to have a conversation with you. So you have to do a little bit of research. I will start by looking at people in the organization that you are interested in creating a collaboration, people who talk to in conferences, people who have blogs, people who are passionate about those kind of things. So people who have this kind of profile, they are easier to talk to. So this is like a way to go inside the company. Maybe these are the people who are not going to directly help you, but maybe indirectly going to open the doors for you. So your objective is for somebody to open the doors, right? Your objective is maybe not to talk to the person that you want to talk. It's to open a door. So you have to figure out people who are passionate about something, go to their event, start talking to them, and then say, can we follow up with a conversation over coffee? And then you can start developing a relationship with them, or to take it further. A lot of times what we do is that we don't spend a lot of time researching people that we want to spend time with. I think if we go prepared, then people like having a conversation with us. So for instance, as I was saying earlier, we have the fund, right, in our school. I have entrepreneurs, these are professional entrepreneurs, who are coming to us, and I have people who have gone to our LinkedIn page. They have seen, who we are, what we do, and immediately when they enter the room, they're saying, hi, Costas, how are you doing? Hi, blah, 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 blah. So, and we have people who are saying, yes, it's very nice to meet all of you. And they start their pitch. So there is a difference in how you approach. Then on the first one, you start developing a little bit of a relationship. And the other one is very, cold, and it's very impersonal. So doing more research is good, and asking questions. People love answering questions, because people love, when you ask somebody a question, they love giving you an answer. By the way, I love asking questions. I don't like so much answering. So, but that's my own problem that I have to deal with. But the thing is, asking will lead you to something else.
Thank you.
So Mr. Marios Hadjidamianos online has been answering all your questions along your talk, Costa. He inquires, what is your opinion about neurodivergent individuals as parts of teams in the context of inherited capacities and skills to actually ask questions?
This is, I've heard about this. So I will actually generalize this, my answer. So I will not focus on this particular question. I'm hearing that it's very difficult to ask a question in organizational settings. This is what I'm hearing from the people. And it is worse for women to ask a question. So a lot of the women who I interviewed, they told me it's more difficult for me to ask a question. So, but this is a cultural thing, which means when I'm saying cultural thing, I'm not talking about a national culture anymore. It's more like an organizational culture. So there has to be culture that encourages people to ask questions. But it's difficult for somebody to ask a question, because as we were saying earlier, you show ignorance. And a lot of people are afraid that their ranking or their currency in organization will drop, will go down if they ask the question. On the contrary, I see this as a very positive sign. So these are the people who are interested, these are the people who are passionate, and we have to encourage more of this. As I was saying earlier, I don't think that it will happen overnight. So this is a skill. This is a muscle that we have to train. We go to the gym to work out. This requires a little bit of working out. But we have to encourage people to ask questions. I will go back to the fund that we have and other things that I have done on my own. So when we invest in the company or when I invest in the company, normally we join the board and other as board observers or directors. But we have to be there for monitoring purposes and then for offering some solutions eventually. The first time that I go to a board, I won't mention the name, I ask a lot of questions. The CEO, the first question was fine, second question was fine, third question was fine, fourth question, he wasn't fine. He got upset. And then he turned to me and he said, he used the academic thing. He said, you're asking a lot of questions about how we work in our industry because you're an academic, right? This made me furious, of course. I said, it has nothing to do with where I'm coming from. I need to understand, because they were talking about the strategy, their approach was scattergun. They wasn't very focused. And so I need to understand why you have this approach instead of going more focused. So the guy went ballistic. I mean, he was super frustrated by this. Ending saying, why don't you trust us? And I said, there is nothing, my question has nothing to do with trusting you. My question is more about understanding and try to see how I can help. So it's more about encouraging. There are a lot of people who are quiet, shy, introverts, and you have to encourage everybody to actually ask questions. Maybe sometimes not in a public forum, maybe in a private, but there has to be this culture where somebody can ask questions without, having some negative consequences, like, trust issues, ignorance, a stigma. There is a stigma attached to questioning. So if somebody, asks a question, there is a stigma.
There is an assumption that if I ask, I don't know.
Correct. Or you're challenging me.
Yes.
So you're saying, Costas, why do you believe this? Okay. So have you thought of this? So you haven't thought through everything.
Yes.
So you're challenging my authority, you're challenging my knowledge, you're challenging my identity, you're challenging. This is what these people think. On the contrary, I don't see it like this. I say that if the questions are about the task that we have in front of us, oh my God, be my guest. Ask as many as you want, right? Because our objective is to create something which is better.
Is there another question from the room?
Yeah.
So,
you have a lot of questions. That's good.
So how do we overcome the barrier of when we ask, everybody goes in an defensive mode,
Yes.
more or less, because challenging the status quo
Yes.
is quite tough.
Yes.
So how do we lure them away from the noise that the ego may build up, and we stay on
Yes.
on track?
In the business schools, what we're always saying is that make the questioning and the whole conversation task-related, not in terms of the person. So if you make it in terms of the person, so if you're saying, Costas, what you thought was not great and you are an idiot, for instance, you will never say this because you are the kindest person in the world, but let's assume that you say this, then it becomes personal. But if you say, why should we make this product blue, for instance? And I tell you, because I have done research. And based on my research, I've talked to 100 people, and they told me that 80% prefer blue. Or if you can tell me, no, people prefer red, because I have talked to 1,000 people, and out of the 1,000 people, 900 like red. Then we can have a conversation based on facts, based on evidence. This is the best conversation. Or if I'm allowed to actually use another word with a negative connotation, fight. Because we can fight based on evidence. If we fight without evidence, that can become personal. And by the way, there is no hope in that conversation. It's a useless conversation. So that's why if you're curious, you come with some answers, and the other person comes with some answers, then it can be a very interesting conversation.
Thank you.
But also curiosity is about being, I think Costas said, it's about adapting as well. Because if we go to the same conversation without the view or the belief that we can change, what's the point of entering? So if I have a conversation with Costas, and in my mind that's saying, if Costas says something interesting to me, I will update my beliefs or my thoughts. Then it's a worthwhile conversation. But if I go in and say, whatever he tells me, I will stick to what I believe. What's the point? It's a waste of my time, it's a waste of his time. And a lot of times, okay, people are not vocal. They're not going to say this, but you say this, right? There are body language clues or other things that they say.
Let me ask the last question before we go.
Yeah.
To what extent can we learn that kind of purposeful curiosity? The examples you gave us and the interviews you have in the book are about extraordinary people. An ordinary person like me who has been conditioned
You are also extraordinary.
not to annoy my dean or not to ask questions. How can I learn to become curious in a purposeful way, in the way that you defined it?
So the quick and easy way is you go to Amazon and you buy the book.
I got the book over here. I want you to sign it for me.
That's a joke. The easy question is to start practicing it. This can become second nature.
How about us as educators
Yes.
in our schools?
Yes. And this is something that I was thinking and reflecting a lot, especially with the AI in ChatGPT. I was thinking our role about this. The role that I don't want personally to have is the role of the passive historian. I would like to be somebody who is actively engaged with the evolution of things. And maybe business schools can become something that they're like just to give an example, like medical schools. You know, what is the dosage of AI? What are the side effects of AI? Do we have placebo effects? You know, these kind of things. Maybe we have to start considering, start having those kinds of questions, what we should be doing. It's nice to bring back questioning in the class. So, for instance, when I teach entrepreneurship, what I do, and I will actually make this a very short thing, and I've done it, I don't know whether I've done it with you guys here, is that I bring an entrepreneur to pitch for investment. And my students spend a lot of time asking the entrepreneur questions. So in that half an hour, it's nothing about answering, it's only about asking. And what kind of questions will lead to better insights, which will lead them to whether they will invest in that particular startup or not. So we have to turn the tables in a way. We have to create opportunities when we ask students to ask questions, you know, a particular individual or a team or a material that they are focused on.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Costas.
Thank you for having me. And I apologize for talking very fast, but this is who I am, yes. Yeah, passion, yes.